I'd like to call the February 6, 2023 meeting of the Town of Cicero Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Ms. Robison, please call the roll.
Here.
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 Here. Please note that this meeting is being simulcast on YouTube and is being recorded. Take note of the fire exits located in the front and rear of the room. At this time, please silence all cell phones and pagers. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of the January 9th, 2023 meeting?
Yes.
Are there any corrections? No corrections?
No
Okay.
corrections.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Daniels,
Yes to the motion.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Mays,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Beck.
Yes to the motion. The Cicero Town Board acknowledges the importance of full public participation at all public meetings. And therefore, we urge all who wish to address those in attendance to please come to the microphone located in the front of the room. At this time, I will make a motion that all actions taken tonight are type 2 actions and have a negative impact. That is, no impact on the environment unless otherwise indicated.
Second.
Ms. Robison?
Mr. Daniel,
Yes to the motion.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Mays.
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Beck.
Yes to the motion. We have proof that all items on tonight's agenda have been advertised as directed by law. I will briefly review the process for tonight's meeting for the benefit of those that have never been before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number one, each applicant will have an opportunity to describe their project. Number two, the board will then ask questions about the project. Number three, I will then open a public hearing where people will be able to speak for or against the variance. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to respond to the public input and provide additional information. Board members will again have the opportunity to question the final decision or the applicant. The board will openly discuss amongst ourselves the 5 factors that contribute to the final decision. This board does not have a pre-agenda meeting, so there is no prior discussion of cases outside of this meeting. Lastly, a motion will be made either approving or denying the motion requested, or I'm sorry, denying the requested variance, seconded and voted upon. Our first case tonight is 7789 Brewerton Road, an application for Makar Property Management. I'd like to open the public comment. Pardon me, I'm reading off someone else's notes here. Let's see.
We have Tim Boyer.
No,
representing the
I'm,
applicant.
yes, at this time, I'll open the floor for questions and, no, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tim. There's something missing on the notes, that's all.
No worries.
I was looking for the gap.
Good evening, Tim Poyer, Inusian Romans Land Surveying. Surveyor, planner for the applicant. I'm just gonna hand out a couple of. Pretty much what you guys already have.
Thanks.
Discussing purposes. Apologize, for some reason, I think they're stapled these on the wrong side, so these are just the architectural of the addition.
Thank you.
So, test, is this thing on?
I think you're good.
I'll use my outdoor voice just in case. We were here back in February of last year, if some of you recall. This is, the Brick and Brew over on Brewerton Road located at, I can't find the address here. 7789 Brewerton Road, right next to the Copper Top Tavern. We were here in February of actually last year, for the proposed addition on the south side of the building. At that time, they were looking into doing a somewhat seasonal addition, I don't know if you guys recall that. Since then, they're looking to make it more of a full, winter, like enclosed addition instead of just seasonal. So they want to be able to heat it and use it in the winter time as well. There's no difference to the actual size of the addition. It's still 18 by 42. It's still located on the south side of the property. I want to point out a couple things that are different here from today's survey to the previous survey. If you notice that the variance we're asking for is 5.6 versus the 4.9 that we asked for before, that is a survey boundary discrepancy. Like the first map we came in here with was off the original site plan, a survey done by somebody else. So we used the site plan but done by others. And that 4.9 was what the other surveyor came up with when we did all the math and coordinates. We went out, did a full boundary survey of the site, and this is the actual location per my certificate. And we're coming up with roughly 5.6. So the actual building is moving north away from that property line. So the new variance we're asking for on that same side is 5.6 versus the 4.9. I just want to explain the difference in that.
Mhm.
And then the other difference is we're asking for the front yard variance for 49 versus 50. The reason for that is the previous survey site plan was done prior to 2017. Since then, and since 2017, there's been a taking along the front of Brewerton Road, which was roughly 5 or 6 feet.
Mhm.
So the road boundary actually moved to the west. Again, the building didn't shift, the building front didn't shift. The actual road boundary per the state actually shifted it to the west, which is causing us to ask for this variance. Again, the size of it is still the same, 18 by 42. It's just because that taking, now we're into the front yard setback, where if they didn't do that taking, we wouldn't be asking for the front yard setback. Does that make sense for everybody? So those are the two variances we're asking for the building. And because we're asking for the fully enclosed building that's going to be used in the wintertime, we're also going to look eventually at doing a full site plan for additional parking in the back of the property. So we're looking to put some parking spots along the west side of the property line, roughly 10 feet off that westerly boundary. Per the code, there's a 15-foot side yard setback for parking when you're up against residential zoning properties. We're trying to stay away from that, the ingress egress that's going through the property. If you see on our survey, there's a easement that basically goes north-south between there to allow interconnectivity between the properties to the north and properties to the south. So that we're trying to push as far away from that to allow that ingress egress to keep going, so that, because we could pull it 15 feet to the east, but then we'd be in the way of that ingress egress, which would not allow us that interconnectivity. One thing I wanted to point out, and that's why I have that first sheet here and the third sheet. So basically Copper Top is already parking all the way up to the property line. We're just showing that it's being done in that area as far as parking up closer to the property line in that Brewerton corridor. We're just trying to stay 10 feet away. There is an easement back there. We're trying to stay away as far as we can, but it is happening. That's basically all I wanted to point out with Copper Top and us and trying to get that 10-foot variance for us. Would you like me to go through the 5 factors?
Sure. Yeah, please.
Is the requested variance substantial? Yes, in some cases, when you're going from, I'm sorry. When you're going from 15 to 5.6, I think that's just numbers wise, percentage wise substantial. When you're going from 10 to 15, that's not as substantial. Will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood, or will the granting of the area variance create a detriment to nearby properties? We don't believe so. Again, we're already utilizing that area specifically where the addition is going. So we're not using up more area. It's already being used by the restaurant. The only additional area we're going to be using is the parking area in the western side of the parking lot. But again, that is that's being used for parking in the same thing that Copper Top's using. So I don't think the detriment to the neighborhood's going to affect. I don't think that's going to affect anything with the neighborhood. I think it's going to stay fine. One thing that we'll have to go through is for site plan. We'll have to go back in there and probably put some trees or some fencing or something up in that area to, protect the neighbors and all that, but we'll go through that with the planning board at that time. Can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance? No, just because of the size of the site and what we're working with as far as the overall area of the site, trying to put an addition on, we don't have any other options, except for the area variances that we're asking for. Was the alleged difficulty self-created? Yes, we're asking for it. We're here. We're looking to expand the operation. So yes, it is self-created. Will the variance have an adverse effect on nearby physical or environmental conditions? Again, no. We don't believe so. Again, it's the addition's already impervious surface area. We are going to have to go through site plan and make sure we address any drainage issues, which we'll do that in the future if and when this possibly goes forward. So I don't think it has any environmental impact.
This time I'll open the questions and comments from the board.
Did I hear you right? You are considering a fence?
Potentially, yes.
You're talking about the back of the property between the residential and, okay, so I'm not sure that's required in the code, right? But it's,
It would be more of a
Site
planning
plan.
board discussion.
What we want to do is make sure we don't take any trees and stuff down to put in
Yeah,
a fence.
and
'cause
it
there's
is
already
wooded.
trees.
It's
It's already
very
wooded
wooded.
back there.
Mhm.
So I'm not 100% that we're going to go with the trees or with a fence, but I want to make sure that we have that option if the planning board thinks it's noteworthy.
yeah, you probably want people, you don't want people walking through there anyway, so.
Steve, question for you. Looking at the application, number 5. Is the proposed action a permitted use under the zoning regulations? And it says yes. Now, this is more of a procedural question. I've noticed it on the other application as well. Due to the fact that they're in front of the zoning board for a zoning change, wouldn't the answer to that be no?
So
I could be wrong.
you're asking for a, Jim, which question you're on again?
5A
Oh, on the environmental assessment.
on the environmental assessment, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, well, it's a permitted use, but I'm not sure I'm following. So I think when you're looking at the project, the addition is an allowed use, right? But it's not meeting the setback. So you're looking for an area variance, but the use is permitted.
Okay, that's what we're talking about, the use, not
Yeah.
the actual construction. Okay.
You're Looking for a
right.
zone change?
No, we're not asking for zone change. No.
I
It's
didn't
just,
think so.
just an area setback. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we look at.
Just the
when we
setback.
answer that
That's
is-
what I
is
was thinking. Okay.
Making sure the use fits the zoning and all that.
Okay.
That's why I check it as yes.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Any other questions from the board?
Rooftop drainage. I see that it's not a pitched roof or anything, so I'm not concerned about drainage towards Copper Top. I'm assuming it's gonna be a normal flat roof with a drain.
And I have our architect here for that answer.
My name is Joe Pryor with In Architects.
Or yeah,
Yes, we are gonna have a flat roof. As you can see with the drawing, we're gonna kind of
Yep.
extend what we have over. So that would be an internal drain into into the storm sewer.
Okay.
Does the board have any further questions? I'd like to open it to public comment. Is there anyone speaking for the project?
That would be me, I guess.
You're more than welcome to come up. Please state your name when you get up here.
My name is Mark McAndrews. I am one of the owners of Vicino's Brick and Brew, myself and my wife. And we've been working on trying to get this project going for a little bit of time now, right? So we not knowing a lot about being in business around here, this is all new to us. So we
Yeah.
started out with with addition, and we're looking to, if we're gonna do it, we utilize the room all the time anyway, the space in the summertime, and it kind of gets some of the people out of our building as well at the same time. And in the winter time, or when it's raining, or when it's getting, the weather starts coming around here as it does, we'd like to have a little room to be able to put more people in. Do little parties, right? Birthday parties for kids. We do a lot of those on Sunday mornings that we don't have a spot to do it in. So we're thinking about just something like that out there, maybe a couple TVs, and just being able to have a little private party if one, after a funeral, whatever it may be. That would really be helpful for us. And again, we're just new people doing this business, and we're just giving it a shot and trying to do the best we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone here to speak against the project? Okay, does anyone want to do the 5 factors?
I can do
Want to
it.
close the public hearing?
Oh, sorry, I'd like to close the public hearing.
Oh,
Anyone like to do the 5 factors?
yes. Do we have to? Oh, okay, never mind. So the 5 factors. Number 1, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Tim covered this. She wants to reduce they want to reduce the front yard setback by 1 foot. That's not significant. The side yard going from 15 feet is 62%, so that is significant. The rear yard probably significant. They're gonna be 30% closer. That's, bridging on significant, but it's not a reason to deny the variance. Number 2, whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood.
We have to,
Sorry,
have to vote on the first one.
sorry.
Mr. Daniel,
Agreed.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Beck.
Agreed.
Number 2, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties would be created. I said, no, there's many other commercial businesses surrounding the location with similar setbacks. And they suggested that they are open to putting the privacy fence in the back to protect the residential neighborhood. So I said that was not an undesirable change.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Beck.
Agree.
Number 3, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. I said no. They had all the time and the money in the world. They could expand going back, but then they wouldn't have, it would probably disrupt the flow of the restaurant way too much, and they wouldn't get the required parking. So I said no to that one.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Beck.
Agree.
Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. I said no, the construction will conform to Cicero's building codes and the draining issues will be addressed.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Beck.
Agree.
And I said the alleged difficulty was self-created. The applicant is asking to construct a non-conforming addition.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Beck.
Agree. Harry, would you like to make the motion?
I will make a motion. On behalf of McCarr Property Management LLC, owners of 7789 Brewerton Road, I make a motion to approve an area variance for a proposed restaurant addition with a front yard setback of 49 feet, where a minimum of 50 feet is allowed. Side yard setback of 5.6 feet, where 15 feet is required, and a parking setback from a residential zone of 10 feet, where 15 feet is required.
Second.
Ms. Robison, please call the roll.
Mr. Daniel,
Yes to the motion.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Mays.
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Beck.
Yes to the motion. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck with your business.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, Tim. Our second case tonight is 8110-8120 Brewerton Road. The applicant is Main Gate Holdings LLC. Ali Nagy, I believe is the name. And Mr. Kane is representing them.
I am Mr. Vic. For the record, my name is Kevin Kane. I'm an architect with KL Kane Consulting. And I'm here on behalf of Main Gate Holdings requesting an area variance for signage for the property they acquired at 8110, 8120 Brewerton Road. Some background, they closed on the property about a year ago. And I think the reason they are in this situation is they probably didn't do as deep a dive into the due diligence analysis of property prior to acquiring it. The property is made up of two structures. 8110 is about 8,300 square feet. And as originally constructed, it's set up for 6 demised premises. The adjacent building, 8120, is about 4,500 square feet, and it's literally divided right in half. Perfectly symmetrical architecture and design. And I think the dilemma that the original developer had was that he didn't necessarily verify the amount of signage provided to cover 8 individual tenancies in an area that only allows for 158 square feet. So when Main Gate Holdings acquired the property a year ago, there was already 140 of the permitted 158 square feet of signage, and they had 4 vacancies. So as soon as they put their own store in half of the vacancy of 8120, they violated the zoning ordinance by 7 feet and ended up creating a problem for themselves and for the town of Cicero. So when looking at the building, the architecture and the design of 8110 in particular is so unique in that the knee walls are cut at specific locations. The entrances are clearly articulated. They developed a signage pattern of a 2-foot by 8-foot wide sign that went into column bays. And it looked like they had anticipated 6 individual signs. Well, had they filled all 6 of those signs without any of the vacancy filled at 8120, they were going to be over their allotted signage. So there is no clear way that they could lease the balance of this property without some consideration from this board about the signage. Now, in fairness to the architectural fabric of Brewerton Road, the signage here is not oversized. It's not overscaled. It's really a dilemma created by someone deciding to design a project with 8 spaces instead of 4 or 2, which would have created no problem whatsoever, and they would have had sufficient signage to be able to apply to those vacancies. But with 8 vacancies, or a total of 8 demised locations, they really had to apportion the signage. And as I said, maintaining the original architecture of 8110, they blow past it even before they get to the second building. So to the 5 main questions that are required for an area variance. Is the variance requested substantial? Well, on its face, a 40% increase could be argued is substantial. But under the circumstances, there's really no other way to allow the commercial value of the property to be maximized. And I think in the town of Cicero's interest, in Onondaga County's interest, and the owner's interest, having vacancy simply because they can't sign it really is, I would think, a reason that we should sincerely consider this request. Will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood, or will granting the area variance create a detriment to nearby properties? Candidly, I don't see how anyone would even notice it. Again, based on the scale and architectural fenestration, it looks like every other commercial establishment along Brewerton Road. So I think the fair answer to that question is no. Can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance? There's none that I can see. the signage, again, he's over now by 7 square feet. So there's no practical way that any other space could be leased lacking a variance. Was the alleged difficulty self-created? Only in that they didn't do a deeper dive into the condition of the property prior to acquiring it. Had they done so, they could have requested and insisted as a condition precedent to the sale that the prior ownership come in front of the same board for the same application, because the balance of the vacancies are commercially untenable under the current circumstances. And the fifth item is, will the variance have an adverse effect in the nearby physical or environmental conditions? Again, I don't see as an architect how there would be any detriment to the town of Cicero or to the commercial properties if this variance were granted, but we're also prejudiced in that belief. Be happy to answer any questions I could if you have
Any
them.
questions from the board?
More of a statement, actually. I personally think having uniformity in the signs on the building will actually look nice.
I agree.
Is it possible to fall within the zoning if the existing signs are reduced in size?
Well, based on our prior conversation, you know that lease rights
Yes.
are fairly black and white, and signage is a requirement of every commercial establishment in America. And we share a common, Mr. Bick and I share a common history at one of the larger real estate development companies. And signage rights are embedded in leases very tightly. So there's no legal way to claw it back from any of the people who have signage right now. And as I said, we're above the ordinance by 7 square feet with the Cicero smoke shop signage. So there's I'm not aware of any legal remedy, Mr. Bick, that we could pursue.
Are the signage rights in these leases?
I haven't seen the leases. I can only speak from 30+ years of
No,
experience.
understand. Steve, any thoughts on that? On whether, if there is no signage right size defined in the lease, is it an assumption that they could make their signs smaller to fall within
They could,
the appropriate ordinance?
they could. Yeah, I mean, this came to our attention because we were following up on a sign that went up without the benefit of a permit.
Okay,
And then realize, hey, you're over and you're gonna need a variance. And it does leave, as Kevin said, tenant spaces there without any sign allotment unless they were to take signs off the pylon side out by the road. The property has been divided over the years. And sign permits that have been permitted in the past were based on the frontage of that tenant space. You had 16 feet, you're allowed 16 feet a square, and that's basically
it.
how that's divided up, I think.
sure.
Okay, so, I think what that would be what, about 40 square feet on the portion of the building that where the Cicero Smoke Shop is in the vacancy correctly to the south of that, correct?
Well, the one aspect of it, Mr. Procopio, that I can't speak to because I have not seen the leases, but they burn up more than, or almost half of their allotment of 158 square feet on the pylon. There's 76 feet on the pylon.
Right.
And again, I can't speak to the history because my client has only owned the property for literally 1 year. And my clients are not from this country. They are recent immigrants from Yemeni or from South Yemen. Their knowledge of American law and customs is certainly not what you would hope for.
Mhm.
And I think this problem that Mr. Procopio referred to is absolutely correct. They didn't know. I'm shocked that the signage company that put the sign up didn't think that they needed a permit, but somehow they didn't because they went ahead and put up the
Smoke
sign.
shop is the last one that went up.
Yes.
There's no intention in changing the size of the pylon sign though, right?
Again, I am not privy to the leases and I don't even know if my client has the leases, to be honest with you. They bought the property, as I said, a year ago. But typically, if you have rights to signage, your rights to the signage are as strong as any other part of your lease, your covenant of quiet enjoyment. I can't say to this board unconditionally that they don't have the right to do it. All I can say is, having been in the business for over 30 years, it's highly unlikely they have the ability to claw it back.
So theoretically if we increase the total permissible signage, they could add to the pylon sign then too and not, or would it have to be?
Yeah, the total signage that you or do not, whatever you do or do not permit, will be inclusive of all signage on the parcel.
But I mean, so say they left one of the building signs down, they could theoretically add to the
Oh,
pylon sign then?
Well, we can make it
I was gonna say, can we put a
contingent.
contingency? Or condition?
They're used for those two vacancies.
if you want it.
I was just curious. I mean,
So typically, if something's before the planning board and they have a situation like this, there might be a lease agreement that says what is allotted for each tenant space, a sign package, right? And then we would go by that. And the planning board has the ability to approve signage in excess of the prescriptive requirement, because that's within their authority. This is an old site that just didn't have the benefit of that, and I don't know what type of private arrangements there are for each tenant space, but it should comply with the town code or a variance.
So they're not going in front of the planning board. This is just, okay.
I think the space here was mostly vacant for long. It was one tenant space when the ice cream store was in there. And then tenants have come and gone out here with maybe just window signage and no building signage. And maybe just some on the pylon, which we don't count for window signage present. So people have been able to use the space without getting any additional signage.
I think there's two ways to handle this. One is not necessarily in Mr. Kane's favor, and that would be to adjourn until we can somehow determine if the leases are promising a certain square footage. Or the other one would be to seriously look at approving what they're asking and be done with it once and for all.
That's what they have to. adhere
I
to.
actually, looking at those signs, I like the scale of that
Mhm.
sign.
Sure.
You're far away from the road. I think a smaller sign would be detrimental to the wayfinding. I don't have any problem with the size of those signs.
Yeah, I agree.
It
fits.
Yeah.
When you add them in. Does the board have any further questions? No. Is anyone from the public wanting to speak in favor of this project? Anyone, anyone wanting to speak against the project? I guess not. Okay. No further questions from the board? Who wants to do the 5 factors?
I'll do it.
Very good.
All right, number one, whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. I said no. It's in an area with plenty of businesses. I actually believe that, like I said, the uniform signage across all 8 tenant spaces will be an improvement from what's currently there.
Mr. Daniel,
Agreed.
Ms. Luckett,
Agreed.
Mr. Beck,
Agreed.
Number two, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. I said no. If tenants want signs, they're already currently above what the code permits. So if they were to lease out those tenant spaces and the tenants want signs for their businesses, then they would have to have it.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Ms. Luckett,
Agreed.
Mr. Beck.
I would disagree with that, but I also would recognize that the method at hand to cure this issue is probably the best one.
Whether the requested variance is substantial, I said 40%, in my opinion, is substantial, however, not a reason to deny.
Mr. Daniel,
Agreed.
Ms. Luckett,
Agreed.
Mr. Beck.
Agreed.
Number four, would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? I said no, will not affect the environment of the neighborhood.
Mr. Daniel,
Agreed.
Ms. Luckett,
Agreed.
Mr. Beck.
Agreed.
And number five, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, I did say yes. I believe simply by the owner, Main Gate Holdings wanting to lease those spaces out and allow the tenants to have signage, it is self-created.
Mr. Daniel,
Agreed.
Ms. Luckett,
Agreed.
Mr. Beck.
Agreed.
With that, I will make a motion for Main Gate Holdings LLC at 8120 Brewerton Road to grant a sign variance where the proposed total sign area is 222 square feet and a maximum sign area of 158 square feet is allowed.
I'll second.
Did you want to add that
No.
those additional square feet are attributable just to those two vacant spaces, or we don't need to do that?
I don't see a reason to do that.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Then agreed.
I'll second.
And Mr. Daniel second, and I'll take the vote. Mr. Daniel,
Yes to the motion.
Ms. Luckett,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Mays.
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Beck.
Yes to the motion. Ms. Robison, thank you very much. I believe the motion is carried. Mr. Kane, thank you very much, and we appreciate your thorough presentation.
Thank you.
Our next meeting is scheduled for March 6th. There being no other business before the board, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
Ms.
We just
Robison.
adjourn. We don't
Meeting is
vote
adjourned?
on it.
You don't
yes.
vote on that? All right, that's it. Thank you.
Good job.